Have you ever had one of those nights that starts out normal, fun even, but somehow twists into something you can never explain? That was me back in 2012, the year I graduated from Redwood High School in a tiny Oregon town called Redwood Valley. You could blink and miss the place. We had one grocery store, one gas station, and the kind of town gossip that spread faster than Wi-Fi. Football games were our biggest event every Friday night. Not because we loved football that much, but because, honestly, there wasn't much else to do. It was one of those cool early fall nights, the kind where the air smells like rain and wood smoke. Cousin Marcus and I were in this ridiculous elective class called Life Skills, in which mostly meant the teacher read the newspaper while we did nothing. Marcus was the funny one, tall, loud, always grinning like he was up to something. I was quieter, more of a go-with-the-flow kind of guy. That Friday, we sat in the back of class, bored out of our minds, when Marcus turned to Riley and Brooke, two girls sitting a few desks away. Riley was the kind of girl who smiled with her whole face. I'd had a crush on her for months. Brooke was her best friend, the kind of person who said what everyone else was too scared to. Marcus, being Marcus, spun his chair around and said, "Hey, you two going to the game tonight?" Riley smiled. "Probably, why?" "'Cause you should come with us," he said. "We've got front row seats at the top of the bleachers," she laughed. "That's not front row, Marcus. Top row, front view," he shot back with that grin of his. They agreed, and after school, Marcus dropped me off at home to change. Around 7, he pulled up again in his old black Honda. The bass from his speakers rattled the door handles. We picked up Riley and Brooke and then drove to the school. Now here's the thing. Redwood High backed up to a thick stretch of woods. Everyone in town knew the stories about those trees. People said a teacher had gone missing there decades ago. Some said kids saw her ghost wandering near the fence at night. But like all ghost stories, it was something we laughed about, until we couldn't. We parked behind the gym near the tree line. The field lights lit up the sky in gold and white, and you could already hear the band practicing. Marcus pulled out a couple cans of cheap beer from his backpack. "Liquid courage," as he said. I laughed and took one. Riley wrinkled her nose but ended up sipping hers anyway. We poured some into water bottles so it'd look like Gatorade. High school survival tactics. By kickoff, we were up in the top row, cheering, joking, pretending to care about the score. The cold metal bleachers shook whenever the crowd stomped their feet. The smell of popcorn and wet grass filled the air, but our team, the mighty Redwood Ravens, weren't so mighty that night. By halftime, they were getting destroyed. People started leaving early. Riley leaned closer to me to talk over the noise. "Maybe we should do something more fun," she said. Marcus grinned. "You read my mind." By the fourth quarter, the stands had mostly cleared out. The field lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across the empty bleachers. When the final whistle blew, we stayed behind. The team trudged off the field, heads down, helmets dangling from their hands. Then one by one the lights started shutting off, until only the faint glow of the scoreboard and the moon lit the place. That's when Marcus said, "Let's go check out the woods." Brooke frowned immediately. "You're joking. Come on," Marcus teased. "You scared?" "Of course I'm scared," she said. "It's pitch black and there's a fence for a reason." Marcus turned to me with that look, the one that meant we're doing this no matter what. "Let's go," I said. We ran toward the trees, laughing, half-drunk, feeling invincible. We ducked under a section of the chain-link fence where the metal had been cut years ago, and the woods swallowed us almost instantly. The air inside was colder. The ground was soft with leaves, and every step made a slow crunch. Riley and Brooke followed reluctantly, their phone flashlights cutting thin paths of white through the dark. We weren't even 10 steps in when Marcus whispered, "Let's mess with them." He took off running deeper into the woods, motioning for me to follow. I did. We crouched behind 2 thick trees, stifling laughter as we heard the girls calling out. "Marcus?" Riley's voice was shaky. "Eli?" We didn't answer. I was about to jump out when Marcus suddenly froze. His eyes widened, his grin vanished. "What?" I whispered. He didn't say anything, just lifted his hand and pointed. At first I didn't see it. Then as my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I noticed something standing between 2 trees, maybe 20 feet away. It looked like a person, tall but off somehow. The shoulders were too high, the arms too long. The figure wasn't moving, but the air around it seemed to ripple, like heat on pavement. Then a voice came from it. "You shouldn't be here." It was a woman's voice, and soft but deep, echoing like it came from somewhere far away and right beside us at the same time. My stomach dropped. Marcus and I didn't move. The figure tilted its head, slow, unnatural, and then it started gliding toward us. Not walking, not stepping, just moving. I didn't even think. I grabbed Marcus's arm and we bolted. Branches slapped my face as we tore through the woods, shouting for the girls. We found them near the fence, terrified, clutching each other. "Run!" Marcus yelled. We didn't stop until we reached the car. We piled inside, slammed the doors, and sat there gasping. "What happened?" Riley demanded. Marcus was pale. "There was someone in there," he said. "A woman, or I don't even know if it was a woman." I nodded. "She told us we shouldn't be there." Brooke's voice cracked. "You're messing with us, right?" We weren't. We watched the woods for a long time, headlights shining at the trees. Nothing came out. Not a sound. The place was dead silent except for the distant hum of the highway. I couldn't shake the image of that figure. Tall, motionless, almost like it. This happened back in 2011 when I was 16 and in my sophomore year of high school. I lived in a quiet little town called Brookhaven. It wasn't the kind of place where scary stuff usually happened. We had one high school, one grocery store, and a movie theater that only showed older films. It was the kind of place where everyone kind of knew everyone. That year my lunch schedule got messed up. They randomly assigned lunch periods, so I didn't get to eat with most of my usual friends. I only had 2 buddies in my lunch period, Evan and Theo. That was it. The rest of the time I was mostly on my own, just trying to survive classes and get through the day. Everything started on a Monday in October. I remember it clearly because it was the first cold day of the season. Everyone had on hoodies and jackets. In first period earth science, our teacher, Mr. Coulson, who liked to crack dad jokes, walked in with a kid I'd never seen before. "All right, class, meet your new alien from a faraway galaxy," he joked. "His name's Vincent." Everyone laughed except Vincent. He just stood there staring at all of us. Mr. Coulson told him to grab the empty seat in the back, right next to me. Vincent walked down the aisle with this slow, quiet shuffle. He didn't smile. He didn't look around. He just sat next to me and stared straight ahead. Class hadn't started yet, so people were chatting, but I could feel Vincent glance over at me. I turned to look, and he nodded once. "What's up?" he said in this flat, low voice. "Hey," I replied, trying to sound casual. He introduced himself and asked for my name, so I told him. He wasn't what you'd call a friendly-looking guy. He was pale, with greasy black hair that looked like he hadn't washed it in a few days. His face had blotchy patches where he'd tried to shave, but it only made things worse. He had this weird facial hair that looked like burnt wire, and his eyes looked like they'd seen some stuff, dark, empty. At first I tried to be nice. I figured it must suck being the new kid. He didn't know anyone, and maybe he was just awkward, but even in the first 5 minutes of talking to him, something felt off, like a buzzing in the back of your head that you can't explain. Later in that same class, we were told to partner up for a project. Of course, Vincent turned to me. "You want to work together?" he asked. What could I say? I didn't know anyone else in that class well enough to team up with. So I said sure. We grabbed laptops and started on the assignment. That's when I started to realize how strange Vincent really was. His jokes were not normal. He'd whisper dirty stuff under his breath and then laugh like it was the funniest thing in the world. His laugh was dry and high-pitched, like a squeaky wheel. He swore constantly. Not in a funny way. In a bitter, angry way. He'd say messed up things about other students walking by, then look at me and grin like we were sharing some kind of inside joke. I wasn't uptight or anything. I could handle jokes and cursing, but something about him felt like a dark cloud. Like he was trying to drag me into his world. And it wasn't a world I wanted any part of. At the end of the class, he asked for my number so we could finish the project later. I didn't want to give it to him, but I also didn't want to be rude. So I did. Big mistake. Later that day, during lunch, Evan was out sick, so it was just me and Theo. We were sitting at our usual spot near the back of the cafeteria when I saw Theo's face suddenly change. He looked up behind me, then quickly looked down at his tray. Someone pulled a chair up next to me. "Hey, buddy," a voice said. I turned. It was Vincent. He grinned and patted my shoulder like we were best friends. I faked a smile. "Oh, hey man." Theo didn't say anything at first. He just looked at me like, what is this guy doing here? But he tried to be polite. Vincent started talking. And when I say talking, I mean he wouldn't shut up. His stories were all weird and messed up. He talked about fights he'd been in at his old school, how he once chased a kid down with a rock, and how his dad had taught him how to break into cars. He laughed through all of it like it was hilarious. I glanced at Theo. He gave me a wide-eyed look like, this guy's nuts. Every time Vincent said something creepy, Theo and I made eye contact behind his back. That lunch period sealed it. There was something seriously wrong with Vincent. After school, I was walking home texting my friends about what time we were meeting up later. Then I got a message from an unknown number. It said, "Turn around." I stopped walking and slowly turned my head. Vincent was running down the sidewalk, waving at me. My stomach dropped. "Oh no," I muttered under my breath. He caught up to me and started walking beside me like it was totally normal. "So, how far you live from school?" he asked. "About 10 minutes, I replied. "Same," he said. "Want to knock out the project?" "I got some beer at my place." I looked at him surprised. "Nah, I've got plans with friends tonight." He nodded slowly. "Oh yeah, what are you guys doing?" I could feel the trap closing. He was trying to invite himself. "Just hanging out at Theo's house," I said quickly. His mom's kind of strict about guests. That seemed to satisfy him for the moment. But he kept walking with me all the way to my house. When we got to my driveway, I tried to be cool about it. "All right, man. Catch you later." I gave him a fist bump and watched him walk down the street. But before he turned the corner, he looked back at me. Later that night, around 8:30, he texted me again. "Yo, what's going on in front of your house?" "Why is there a cop car?" My heart jumped. I ran to the window. Nothing. No lights. No car. I stepped outside onto the front steps, and that's when I saw him. Vincent was standing in my driveway, grinning. "Got you," he shouted, laughing. "What the hell, man?" I said. "I thought you were at home." "I thought you were going to Theo's." "I am." Later. He stared at me, that smile slipping away. "I finally said it, dude. Why are you being so weird?" That hit a nerve. His face changed. His smile dropped and his eyes got hard. "I gotta go," I said, backing into the house and locking the door behind me. Not long after, my phone buzzed. "WTF, man? Thought you were different." I stared at the screen. "We had known each other for barely a day," I replied. "You're freaking me out." "Dude, wrong move." He sent a wall of text, talking about how I was fake, how he thought I was real, but I was just like everyone else. I screenshotted it and sent it to my group chat. They were all like, "What the hell?" I emailed Mr. Coulson and asked to work alone on the project. Then I got out of the house and walked to Theo's to clear my head, but it didn't end there. Around midnight I got home. My parents were out, and my sister was at her boyfriend's place. I locked the front door and went up to my room. I was just watching YouTube when I heard it. Ding dong. Not the front doorbell. The back one. Yeah. Our house had a doorbell in the back and it sounded totally different. I paused my video and froze. No one ever used the back door. I went downstairs. The backyard lights were off. I peeked through the kitchen window. Nobody. I slowly opened the inner door and kept the screen door locked. "Hello?" I called out. Silence. Then, scrape. The sound of a shoe dragging on the patio, just to the left. Out of view. I slammed the door shut and locked everything. My hands were shaking. My phone buzzed. It was Vincent. I didn't answer. Another buzz. A text. "Come outside." "I want to talk," I replied. "I'm calling the cops." He responded, Okay, I'm leaving." It was him. He had come back. He was hiding out there in the dark, waiting. I sent the screenshots to my parents, my friends, and eventually the school. Turns out his family had moved a bunch of times before. Every school they went to, something like this would happen. Creepy behavior, obsession, problems. He didn't show up at school Monday, or ever again. I don't know where he went. I don't want to know. All I know is this. Sometimes when you meet someone and your gut tells you something's wrong, listen to it because I did, just barely in time.